Welcome back, Ninja community and persons that might have watched my quality statement and disclaimer video. If you haven't seen that already, you should probably go and check that out. This video is going to be on some Ninja Bible study. If you've seen some of my other videos on Ninja Bible study, you'll know that it's pretty interesting. Okay, so today, sometimes Ninja Bible study, some of the techniques or Ninja language could be interpreted as techniques. Sometimes it could have deadly applications, so I will go over my quality statement and disclaimer real quick, mostly for liability. So, bear with me real quick. The viewer understands my quality statement disclaimer video. Additionally agrees that this video could be treated as is with ballistic protection, which in short means I don't have a seal on it, therefore I don't guarantee the techniques and your application of the techniques. And if you're watching this video with the intention of using any of its content to commit a crime, that is also a crime. Actually using any of my content in committing a crime is an additional crime. Also, the viewer agrees that this is my intellectual property, etc. Okay, so moving on to Ninja Bible study. Okay, I was reading this earlier. Let's see if I can find it again. Okay, I think this is Numbers 31. 31:8. And they slew the kings of Maadin beside the rest of them that were slain, namely Evi and Rachim and Zar and Har and Reba, 5 kings of Maadin. Balaam, also the son of Beor, they slew with the sword. So in Ninja Bible study, I will be talking mostly about the sword. In my upcoming video, I will probably cover something to do with the chain, or the whip chain, or an improvised whip chain. So in this video, I'll be covering slaying with a sword. Now, I've seen some supposed experts on swords get some things wrong. Okay, like we'll talk about the katana first. Okay, the slight curve in the blade. Right, let me just show this real quick. Okay, the slight curve in the blade, the edge of the blade, right? It does have a benefit in its effectiveness. Okay, originally the katana's curve or slight curve in the blade, if you can see this, the slight curve. Originally it was a design flaw in the manufacturing process that was necessary because of the poor quality metal in that area in Asia. So if you have bad quality metal, you have to do something with it in order to have a functional blade. So the process of the clay tempering, where the back of the blade, let me just draw this real quick, okay? Where the back of the blade, if you can see this groove, now in a katana, the groove was put there for the reason of putting thicker clay here, and then thinner clay could be put in the rest of over the blade. The tempering process, where it would be dipped straight in, like kind of like cutting the water, right? More like just slowly cutting the water, and it would start from the tip and go all the way in, would cause it to bow forward first and then come back up. That is the moment that the Japanese considered the blade to have been born at that point in the tempering process. It bows and returns and stands upright. Okay? So the tempering process that caused the curve, right, makes every chopping motion also a pulling cut. This is basic physics. Even supposed sword experts should understand this. Even if they're experts in, let's see, European style swords. Now, the slight curve does allow for the blade, when carried with the edge up, does allow for the edge, the blade to be drawn rather quickly. And I will cover a slaying with the sword technique in this video. Okay, but the slight edge does provide a benefit because every chop is a dragging slice. Now, I have one European style sword here. This is what is referred to as a hand-and-a-half sword or a bastard sword. Okay, but drawing a straight blade that is long is difficult to draw, and the awkwardness would put you in a disadvantage. That is why most of the time long swords or hand-and-a-half swords would be drawn from the person who wields its page. The page would come up, kneel down, would present the sword from a kneeling position like this, and the knight or other individual, whatever their rank or title was, would actually put their foot on their chest and push them to the ground as the sword was drawn. This seemed to be a bit degrading in some cultures. However, it was a great honor to be someone of stature's page, because they were trusted with carrying their sword, which typically wasn't the primary weapon on the battlefield. Usually, like a knight or other nobleman, it would be something like a lance or a much larger polearm. So a page, who's typically just basically learning how to fight, would be the one who was trusted to carry someone's sword in the midst of battle, and was trusted to keep up with it. Okay, but the drag slice of a longsword is even specifically mentioned in manuals of historical European style fighting. It specifically mentions. So like typically with a missed strike, I will demonstrate. It would be much easier if I had some sort of dummy to set up here. Okay, with a missed strike or a blocked strike across the top, right? If that person had blocked with their shield and had dropped their shield lower, and I drug the blade back, right, the dragging slice, the sharp edge was being long enough, the dragging slice was so devastating that it would cut through chainmail. Even this sword here will cut through chainmail on a dragging slice. Yes, real chainmail. And that was typically all that could be worn at the neck, because you have to like be able to move. Okay, so the dragging slice, even if someone blocked their shield high, had dropped their shield lower, and that long sword were laid across their neck, the dragging slice was enough to at least nick one little cut at the carotid artery, at the jugular. Okay, that was, people were slain by the sword in medieval style tournaments where they would joust like on horseback with lances, and they would even do some sword fighting. That is why it specifically mentions that they started using blunted swords or swords without edges in medieval style competitions in the medieval and Renaissance era. Okay, now another curved blade that offers for a more beneficial type of power is the kukri. It's used by some other militaries out there as one of their main weapons. or not their main weapon, but kind of like the weapon that they would utilize. Okay, it is drawn differently than a katana and a European style longsword or hand-in-the-half sword. It is typically drawn this way, as the curve is in the other direction, and it's usually drawn from the same side that it's worn on. Like here, it would be drawn this way. Okay, and if you can see the kukri, it has a curved edge, and it makes every chop. See if you can see the blade here. Okay, it makes every chop or strike like this more powerful by being leaned forward, putting more power on the end, much like a hatchet, right? I don't know if this one offers more of a benefit by making the strike a dragging slice. Now, the long sword does not make the dragging slice on its own from a simple chop, nor does a smaller sword like a broadsword or a branding sword or a what else would there be? Short sword. The chop does not have the pulling motion on its own, and you typically wouldn't want to use a long sword in the same exact manner that you'd want to use a katana. Okay, so I will demonstrate slaying with the sword from a katana could come from even being sheathed. Okay, from the katana, you would want to keep your hand close to here, and when you grip the blade or grip the handle, you would want to make sure that it was right up against here. Okay, the draw, you would probably want to step forward as you drew, and it takes just one little nick, and then you come in and you finish them off. Let's see. When you return the blade, you want to rest it against here, or marry it to its sheath. Okay? This way you can put the blade back without looking at it. Okay? The slaying with the sword could come from here. Just one strike at someone's neck. Chop is also a dragging slice, right? And some arts do different returns than others. You can watch those. Okay. So if you've watched the video so far, feel free to hit like hard like a ninja and subscribe to my channel to be alerted for when I do videos on YouTube. And you can check me out on my Facebook under my artist name or my 10th ninja name, Mel L, that's M-E-L-E-O. And I have an Instagram, but I'm not telling you what my Instagram name is. You'll just have to be ninja and go figure that out yourself. You can share my video with people who are ninja, but not with people who ought to be ninjas, because they might accidentally learn something. And also check out my other videos. And when I talk about the chain or the whip chain, this will be I guess a preview for my other videos. If you're going to train with a chain, say if you're already familiar with nunchaku or nunchucks, I highly suggest you learn some moves with whip chain before you get out there training with whip chain. I also highly suggest that you begin with a rope, because a chain is less forgiving than a rope. Okay. So you can share my video with people who are ninja, but not with people who ought to be ninja, because they might accidentally learn something. I will cover a little bit more on here. Let's see, slaying with a kukri. The kukri, right, The power behind a kukri looks a lot like a machete, right? Except for the end is curved. The power behind a kukri is so devastating that it has been known to clear chop off limbs of other people, like to sever arms, typically at the shoulder. It's been known to do that, as well as at the joint here. So it's been known to take off hands and clear one chop with a kukri of just taking off someone's limb. So slaying by the sword, that is most definitely one. Now a gladius, the gladius would be a sword that was about this long, that was double-edged and straight. One of the best moves with a gladius, from a ninja's point of view, is to use your shield at an angle. And when someone tries to flank you and shield bash your shield, is to come across the top, right? Come across the top. Of course, it could also come from this way, but with a gladius, that would definitely be the ninja approach. Okay, so we covered slaying with the sword. I guess I could cover a little bit more on the European style sword, or the hand and a half sword. It's called a hand and a half because usually it can be wielded with one hand or two. And yes, you can effectively wield one of these one-handed. Effectively. It's better, instead of wasting time like I have before, wielding two hand and a half swords. It is more effective, highly so, more effective to wield a hand and a half sword and a short sword, or like a dagger, like a stiletto type of sword. That is a lot more effective because the crossover moves, like your weapons are in the way if you try to do any type of crossover. So you're more limited, even if you're ambidextric. It's a lot better to pick an offhand weapon when using a hand and a half sword. So take my advice, don't waste your time dual wielding bastard swords. It's much more effective in real sparring or contact, any type of real world type of. Now I suppose if you were fighting two opponents at the same time, it might be more beneficial to have two bastard swords. However, I highly suggest mostly just learning. If you're going to really want to do that, just stick with a shorter blade. It's a lot more effective. Okay, slaying with a long sword. Okay, if you're doing the strike, if you've missed, or if you've hit their shield and they have lowered their shield first and coming closer because they think chopping you will do more damage than pulling that at their neck, will typically get their jugular. Again, this blade is highly sharp. Highly sharp. Down here, it is fairly sharp. Still sharp down here. Okay? This blade is very sharp, and it takes only like less than you're basically, you only need to cut close to like 3 sheets of paper before someone is beginning a lethal wound. And it only needs to get 1/8 of a centimeter through chainmail. And that dragging cut could be done, let's see, at the minimum, I suppose, depending on where it was at on the blade and how it was angled. If you have roughly 4 to 12 inches of a dragging cut across chainmail, they'd pretty much be done. They would be slayed by the sword. Okay. Again, specifically mentioned in manuals of why blunted swords were used in tournaments prior to the Renaissance was the dragging cut across chainmail at the neck. Okay. So, until next time, stay ninja, my friends. Stay ninja.